What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it is time to give you my college football playoff projections heading into week number 2 of the 2023 college football season. We are officially now heading into week 2. I don't think we really learned a lot from last week in terms of these projections. I know it was just the first projections of the college football playoff. We haven't learned a whole lot from these teams yet, but we're going to learn about more of these teams until we get into about the 4th or 5th week of the college football season. Looking at my projections from last week, I've made quite a few changes, but not a lot of changes to my college football playoff projections, over the weekend. And again, how this video works, I give you the top 4 teams for me, and also I'm going to be basing this off of how the teams performed over the weekend. And then we're going to give you also a semifinal prediction for both of these games, and then also a national championship game prediction if these games were to happen over the weekend. So let's get right into it here with my week 2 projections for the college football playoff projections. And here is the bracket for the college football playoff. And again, the number 1 versus number 4 seeded matchup will be in the Sugar Bowl, and then the number 2 versus number 3 matchup will be the Rose Bowl. So let's get started here with my number 1 seed. That number 1 seed for me is obviously going to be no change here. I got Georgia here at number 1. They were my number 1 team from last week. So I'm not going to make a change here. I still think Georgia is the top team in the country as of right now. I know a lot of people are going to be saying that Georgia performed terribly against UT Martin. I don't think they were that terrible. I mean, if you look at the scoreboard, it was 48-7, so that tells me that Georgia is going to be, once again, a really good team this year. I don't think they are a dangerous team just yet, though, because I have to see them play like a really good team, and I know their schedule is not really that difficult, but I still think Georgia is still the top team in the country, even though they don't have a tough schedule. And I said in the offseason that Georgia, I think, has the easiest path to make it to the college football playoff this year. And I think it's just, a schedule that really plays out well for them. And I just don't think it's going to be very difficult of a, year for this Georgia team. So Georgia here is my number 1 seed for week number 2. Again, no change there. I had them at number 1 for me last week. My number 2 seed here, it's obviously going to be Michigan. No change here for the top 2 teams. Michigan, I know they were sluggish against East Carolina. The offense didn't look really good, but I still think this is a really good Michigan team. Maybe the reason why they weren't really that good in that first game was because they didn't have Jim Harbaugh, their head coach, and I think that's the reason why they were just overall that overrated on the offensive side of the football. But this offense is going to get better, but like I said, it's just a week into the college football season. We're going to learn more about these teams until we get into about the 4th or 5th week of the college football season, and we'll see how good these teams are for the rest of the year. So Michigan here, no change here at number 2. And again, Georgia and Michigan here are my top 2 teams from last week to this week, so no changes here for the number 1 and number 2 seeds. Let's now go to the number 3 seed. So I made a change here with my number 3 seed. Last week I had Ohio State here at number 3, but based off of their performance, I'm going to put a new team here at the number 3 spot. And that number 3 seed for me is going to be Florida State. Florida State coming off that big-time win against LSU over the weekend. And that game right there just told us that Florida State was a serious playoff contender. I mean, this offense looks really explosive. Offensively, you got Jordan Travis at quarterback, who I think is a really talented quarterback. I think he's probably one of the most talented quarterbacks over the weekend. I think there were other quarterbacks out there that were really good, but Jordan Travis probably had the best performance, I think, of his Florida State career, especially against a top 5 team like LSU. So Florida State here, I think they definitely deserve to be in my college football playoff projections for week number 2, especially after that top 10 win. So Florida State here at number 3. Defensively, they look really good as well in that game. I think they held LSU to about 50 total yards of offense in that second half, and LSU just quit from there. So Florida State here at number 3. Number 4 seed, I made a change here as well. Last week, I had LSU at number 4, but they did lose to Florida State, so I made a change here to my number 4 seed. But you're probably going to be shocked about this pick. Maybe you're not shocked about it, but probably will be shocked, maybe. But my number 4 seed is going to be Alabama. Alabama gets in here as my number 4 seed. I don't think they are a playoff contender just yet, but this team I should say they are a playoff contender, but based off of what I saw with Ohio State in their game against Indiana, and based off of what I saw with Alabama in that first game against Middle Tennessee, I know it wasn't against a good Mid-Tennessee State team, but this Alabama team definitely deserves to be my number 4 seed, just based off of the performance for Ohio State in that game against Indiana. Ohio State's offense has some work to do. I just think Michigan and Ohio State's offenses were overrated in that first game of the season. And also, the Big Ten doesn't really have that explosive offense yet and that top offense yet in the Big Ten this year. Florida State, I think, was the most explosive offense this weekend. I know Georgia scored 48 points in their game, but against a top 10 team in LSU, that's a really big win for them in, that week number 1 matchup. But Alabama here at number 4, I don't think they're going to be here very too long. But again, based off of what I saw with Alabama, I have to put them here at number 4. They were just so much better on the offense. Jalen Monroe looks really good at quarterback. We're going to see his first real test of the season as he gets to play Texas this weekend. So these are my top 4 teams: Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and Alabama. And let's make now some predictions here if these games were to happen this weekend. So we'll start with Georgia and Alabama here in the Sugar Bowl. This is a matchup that I picked to, also pick in the preseason in the SEC championship game. I did predict Georgia to win that game. I mean, based off of, both teams' performances in that first weekend, I mean, both teams really look good on the offensive side of the football, but again, this is a hard prediction to make if these games were to happen this weekend. I still, either way, like Georgia in this game. I think it's a close game, but I think Georgia is still the better team. And like I said, based off of my SEC football prediction championship game as well, I'm still going to pick Georgia to win that game based off of the performance, against UT Martin and based off of Alabama's performance against Middle Tennessee. I think they were good, but I think Georgia is the better overall team. So as of right now, I'm going to pick Georgia to win that game still in the SEC championship, and I'm still going to pick Georgia here in my Week 2 projections. Then we got Michigan versus Florida State here in the Rose Bowl. Based off of what I saw with Florida State over the weekend, they were the much more talented offense and not the most talented defense than Michigan's, but Michigan didn't really play against a good East Carolina team. But Florida State, based off of their performance against LSU, I'm definitely going to pick Florida State in this game. So I think Florida State will beat Michigan here in the semifinal if this game were to happen this weekend. Just like I said, Florida State played a much better game than Michigan over the weekend, and they upsetted a top 10 team in LSU. So that was enough for me to put them here in the number 3 spot and also to win this game against Michigan. So we got Georgia and Florida State here in the national championship game. If this game were to happen tomorrow, last week I had Georgia and Michigan in week number 1, but both of those teams haven't really played a game yet. So looking at the recap of both of these teams' games, I mean, Georgia definitely an explosive offense, but Florida State, just in general, both sides of the football, they were both really good on both sides of the football. And I think Florida State is the better team here. I think, they are the more experienced of a roster as well. Georgia might be the more talented team, but based off of what I saw with Florida State, I'm going to pick Florida State here to win the national championship game if these games were to happen over the weekend. So I like the Seminoles here in week number 1. I think based off of their performance, they had probably the best performance of the weekend. And I think Florida State definitely deserves to be my national champion here in these projections. So again, this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection on how the teams played over the weekend. But again, my 4 teams here were Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and Alabama. And of course, my national champion pick is Florida State. So give me your thoughts on these projections for the college football playoff. Let me know down in the comments below who are your top 4 teams as well. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.